workforce, but to the landowner base out there that likes to harvest Douglas fir on a regular basis. So we have to do whatever we can to keep that facility in operation. We seem to be maybe a little bit late for the mill in Branscombe, the Harwood's Products Mill, but we can't, with Douglas fir being our major species out there, we can't let all of our facilities go away that processes that wood product. So I'd appreciate any help you can do. I think of all this stuff on your list, it's just one line there, but it's extremely important that we get involved in that and do what we can.
And what that will come down to is it's going to require full support of the board. Currently they're working with Jeff Lucas, who's a consultant locally, and they're working on putting together a sort of a comprehensive package and packet that would then be brought before this board to see if, what the board thought of it, and if the board was willing to support it, we could then bring it forward to HCD, which is Housing and Community Development, the State Department.
Supervisor Delver.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dunnicliff, I too very pleased to see all this activity, and to chime in on Supervisor Pinchas's comment, we did, and your predecessor did a lot of work with Agwood previously on relocation of their southern mill up here and the equipment and the expansion, and so this is a continuation of that to a degree, and I too encourage us to move forward. It's a great operation, and they are providing one of the last providers of a need here in the county for that size of operation. My concern isn't so much with you, Steve. It's, I'm going to express to the CEO, is what I see on here is the same breadth of activities that your predecessor did, and I'm wondering if we're getting a little thin or if we need some additional support, because I don't want to see us get everything thrown at Steve, because it's, he's good at it all, but as we did before, I think that cost us a setback, and I'd rather us, if it takes another body to do more economic development and split that out from the housing and the CDBG stuff, or however you see fit, but I just don't want to see us overload when we could be focusing better with some more assistance.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I think you can see from what Steve's involved in why we didn't do some of the economic development activities in the past of our office. It's very time consuming. Just this project here in town in the city of Ukiah for the RCHDC, I always get those acronyms wrong and I apologize, but that project they're trying to do off of Brush Street. And the number of units has changed. There's flood issues, there's creek issues, there's the Orchard Street Bridge. All of those things take a great deal of staff time. We're moving forward. Your next Monday, we'll be having the next board workshop on economic development. I think it's timely then to have that discussion. We'll be doing, if you've looked at your agendas, we do have some activities relating to housing, but also economic development. And then we will be returning to your board to get some direction in exactly how to pursue economic development. The sort of hard and fast of economic development, we still, excuse me, we've got a number of initiatives that are going out there that I'm handling myself that I think at some point is best has a focus, but we've talked with the city about how we can engage in partnerships at our city-county managers meeting last week. One of the issues on our agenda, we talked about our RDAs and how we work together. So there's many issues coming there to a head here before the year is out, but I definitely agree with you that we need a focus, and we'll need an individual to move forward if we're going to make any progress in those areas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Dunnicliff, thank you for the report. It's very well done, and it really shows again, the breadth of activity that's out there that we're working on. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe on that note, it would be good to take a look at our economic development coordinator position. We have Mr. Dunnicliff as administrative analyst too, and I'm sure as the board would recall, I believe we allocated additional revenue that was supposed to come out of this year's budget that was supposed to be for economic development. And is that something that will be covered at the workshop? Can we have an update on what does the recruitment look like? What is the, where are we going with that position? And how does the executive office see the delineation between what Mr. Dunicliff's duties are and where the economic development coordination can go? And obviously, there's been some cost savings because that position hasn't been filled, so I'm sure the executive office has spent that on other things this year. But where are we going, and what is our sort of timeline on that? And what could we expect to be hearing when we attend the workshop?
Bruce.
Alison Glassy, Assistant CEO. The workshop is a series of presentations, one a speaker on economic development focusing on agriculture, presentation on affordable housing, and a presentation on redevelopment, and then kind of pulling that all together. So that's the specific workshop on the 18th. With regard to the approach towards economic development in our office, as has been pointed out, there was such a breadth of things. It seemed like the first order of business was to get all of that in order. And so Steve really is spread a little bit thin, but he's also getting, quite frankly, the lay of the land and knowing how CDBG relates with some of the economic development issues, with redevelopment and all of those things. And what he and I have talked about is in, another month or so, when he's got about 3 months through, really sitting down and then sorting through those activities. We are working on getting the administrative support for the CDBG reporting. There's a lot of paperwork that's associated with that, and we've identified where that would come from, working on training. So we're going to put together kind of the infrastructure that we need, and then as we look forward, particularly with redevelopment, we would be looking at, is additional staffing needed, and then where do we slot that in? But it was very important that Steve come in and get a total understanding of all the different aspects of it first, and then we could figure out what the next steps would be. So that's how we're approaching this, and once we can kind of assess where we are, then we'll look at, is additional staffing needed? What role would redevelopment then play in being able to pay for some of that staffing, as well as the other funds allocated to the executive office? So does that answer your question? Or
Somewhat.
okay, the economic development is kind of a continuing discussion. So after the workshop on next Monday, there is going to be a workshop later in the year specifically talking about what do you as a board see as appropriate economic development activities for the county. And it's after that discussion that we would then basically tailor the staffing to make those priorities occur. And that's when that discussion will be completed.
Well, on to that budget point, because now we're, going into our next budget cycle. So since I don't have the budget book here, what is the allocation or